Hey guys, I want you to listen to this because this has a lot of details and it's all true. In the mission all gillied up, you're in a place called Pripyat, Ukraine, and here's the story. April 26th, 1977, in a place called, in a city named Chernobyl, in a town called Pripyat, in the state of Ukraine. A nuclear power plant was built and commissioned. It had one reactor at the time, but their government built 3 more reactors in 10 years. In 1980, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant had 4 reactors, but only 2 were in use. As citizens started moving into the town of Pripyat and the city of Chernobyl, their government, hang on, their, why isn't this, oh yeah, okay, their government had a lot of people without power. So in 1981, the 3rd reactor was done being built and was in use. In 1982, the 4th and final reactor was built with a bigger core than the other 3 reactors had, with over 3 times the size of the other 3 reactors, with the size of around 1/4 of a mile wide and about a quarter of 1/4 of a mile high, making the 4th reactor more dangerous if a problem were to happen, with the reactor holding thousands of tons of radiations. And that means like tons, like not like the measurement type tons. That's the type of tons I'm talking about. Alright, the town of Pripyat and the city Chernobyl that's inside of the town of Pripyat had a total of just over 50,000 people living in the town. At this point, the whole town had power and people were living their normal lives until April 26th, 1986, when no one saw it coming. Meanwhile, at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, they were going through tests on the cooling systems in each reactor. The first was fine, same with the 2nd and 3rd, but the 4th reactor wasn't working as well. As soon as they started the cooling system test, things started to go horribly wrong. The reactor was building up steam, and the results of the steam and heat building up inside of the reactor, kind of like a soda can, resulted by the 4th reactor's top blowing up and having somewhat like lava melting substances melting towards the core of the reactor. The second the top of the 4th reactor blew off, it was nighttime by the time, but it spread radiation throughout the state of Ukraine all the way to the following states: Belarus, Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, Moldova, Moscow, and more. In fact, because there was so much wind and the wind was carrying the radiation going across the whole earth, but only affected the states I wrote down. It got to the point that 4 days after the Chernobyl accident happened, they started evacuating the whole town of Pripyat. Now, let's rewind a tiny bit when the explosion happened. The fire department didn't know what happened. They just knew there was a huge fire at reactor 4 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. And didn't know about the leak of radiation. So the firefighters, about 3/4 of them died from high radiation levels while they were putting out the fire. The next day, the government did announce that there was an accident, but said, and I quote, "We have it under control. There is nothing to worry about. Everyone will be fine," said government. This was said to prevent chaos, panicking, and riots from happening. Within the first 2 days after the disaster, citizens started getting sick and having metallic tastes in their mouths, which is a sign that you have radiation sickness. It isn't bad most of the times, but the radiation started to affect the people living close to the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. The Soviet Union's military were called in to help with the situation. The military arrived to evacuate the nearby homes in ATV tanks. They were close to the power plant. The people were told to only bring necessary items as if they were supposed to come back within a few days. This was said to prevent panicking and people overloading with luggage and items. That includes people having to leave behind pets, family members, anything. The Soviet Union government didn't think it would be so bad that later on, the people that were evacuated were told that they were never allowed back. And when the military only evacuated 16,000 out of 49,400 people, the rest were killed from high radiation levels causing cancer and more. Eventually, the Russian government decided to make a concrete sarcophagus around the fourth reactor to reduce the amount of radiation leaking out. It was built to only last 30 years. Workers and military had to help get rid of the radioactive stuff on the roof of the reactor. It was a suicide mission, but if it wasn't done, the radiation would have gotten worse and leaked everywhere in the world. The workers went up to the roof in groups of 5 with shovels to shovel out the radioactive materials. Eventually, the Russian government sent robotic machines to clean it up instead of people. The plan worked. They had 2 robotic remote-controlled tanks modified and equipped with big rams and plows on the front of them to push the radioactive materials off the roof. The second remote-controlled tank wasn't working. It was stuck, so they sent people up there with a hinge to attach to the working remote-controlled tank and the stuck one. They did eventually manage to get it unstuck, but that wasn't the problem. The problem was the engine got absolutely crushed by the drop when it was dropped in by a helicopter. The evacuation or exclusion zone was just 18 miles away from Pripyat, which is where the Chernobyl happened. It was in the nearby city. Only 16,000 of 49,400 people were evacuated and survived. Ever since the Chernobyl disaster, the city has been known as the ghost town. People were forced to leave everything behind, including pets and family members. And now 50,000 people used to live there. Now it's a ghost town. Now I want all of you to imagine what these people were going through in their heads when they are told, you have to leave everything behind and come with us. What went through their minds. Close your eyes and imagine that, having to leave everything behind only to find out you're never allowed to go back. All your pets, personal items, contaminated and mutated dogs and cats, or even babies. When they were born and their mom was in the disaster, the babies had huge birth defects, like 4 eyes and 4 arms. 49,400 dead because of one little mistake. This is the Chernobyl disaster before and after. I can't show you the picture, sadly, but nuclear power plant had also spread through the forest, which had such a high radiation level that the forest is now named the Red Forest. The world's most radioactive thing also happens to be underneath the core at Sector 4, or Reactor 4, called the Elephant's Foot. A person, when near it for 60 seconds, it kills them with 3+ layers of protection and multiple inches of protection clothing on. Also, the explosion of the 4th reactor is actually, this has been proven true as well, but it is actually 500 times the size of the bomb we dropped on Hiroshima was, which one of those nukes is about 10,000 tons of TNT. Now you're probably thinking, how did it not have a bigger impact? Well, then that's where the science comes in. The whole thing was caused by the buildup of steam and water in extremely hot temperatures. Still scratching your head, thinking, how did it blow up? How did it blow up? The steam ended up boiling the system's cooling water supplies, and it is all creating molecules like CO2. Well, all this is compressed in like a giant soda can type structure, causing the top of the roof to just blow off. And over 100 tons of radiation were spread within the next morning of the disaster. Now, here's the gameplay.
Let's go.
I'll shut my mouth now. Now, within this mission, you are in Chernobyl, Pripyat. This is Ukraine This is the Ukraine's letters and everything. And in fact, you get to see the 4th reactor in this mission, which I will show you guys
Get down.
in part 2, okay? Part 2 is after this. Hope you enjoyed this first one. Please subscribe and leave a like. Thank you so much.